Hello everybody, welcome to Phoenix History. Welcome today to a very noisy, because we're standing underneath the motorway, video which is about the Battle of Wrotham. More importantly, to be precise, the Battle of Blacksole Field, which we are currently standing in. So without further ado, let's talk about the history of it, and then let's talk whilst we're actually on the battlefield itself. So I'll see you on the other side. Take care for now, bye! On January the 28th, in 1554, at Blacksole Field, located in Wrotham village in Kent, the lead up to the battle started due to the proposed marriage of Mary Tudor and Philip of Spain. Sir Thomas White of Allington Castle in Maidstone, who originally was a supporter of the Queen, but when Mary chose Philip of Spain, it became a very unpopular move because it was felt that among the rebels that they had wanted to prevent the country being ran by a foreign power, and also fear of Catholics who had been appointed to the Privy Council and other important posts, and along with potential other factors due to rightful succession. This all boiled over and became a melting pot of anger which eventually stirred up a rebellion in Kent. The battle itself started when White's followers, under the command of Sir Henry Isley and Anthony and William Knevet, and their supporters in the west of the county, with around 500 men, were on the way to link up with the main force led by Thomas White in Rochester, but was cut short when Sir Robert Southwell, Sheriff of the county, and Lord Abergavenny, with around 500 men and yeomen coming from the Malling area of Kent. The rebels put up a brave fight but were poorly armed against horsemen and trained fighters, with the sheriff's troops using weapons such as the harquebus, a firearm that shot a weight ball around 2 ounces over a distance of 100 yards, and to protect them, numbers of men with halberds were mixed in with their halberdiers to form the hedgehog formation. This would become one of the first battles on English soil where the new guns and tactics developed during the mid-16th century were put into practice. In the end, the rebels ran away as fast as possible and fled to Hartley Wood, some 4 miles away, where they joined the main rebel force on its way to London to press their demands. Sir Henry Isley himself escaped and fled into Hampshire, but in the end the rebellion came to grief and White was executed on the 15th of March 1554. Relics of the combat, including swords and skullcaps, have been found in Blacksole Field. Hey everybody, welcome back. So we're currently standing on Blacksole Field, which is obviously in Wrotham. I want to sort of talk to you about really how the event sort of played out, really. Now, for all intents and purposes, it was called a battle, but really, it was really more of a skirmish than anything else. I mean, yes, there was casualties and yes, there was prisoners being taken, but it wasn't like of an epic scale that we would all sort of know. I mean, when you think about you sort of always picture these big, huge battles, and obviously in comparison, this was a relatively small one, really. But it was still important in our history. It's one of these ones that I think actually in Kent doesn't really get it never really has a proper look, really. I mean, it sort of like always gets a little bit there's bigger and more important battles, and obviously, like I said before, Kent's obviously always been the home of sort of invasion, really. And obviously when you've got a battlefield like this which has got nothing to do with invasion, and it's actually a battle that is literally of a sort of medieval context, and that we can actually trace it and we know exactly what happened, it's kind of cool in that respect. That, like I said, if you come here, you can sort of look at the battlefield and you can sort of see where the event sort of took place. So as I was sort of saying, talking about events, let me talk you through the events that happened. So, in Blacksole Field, which is where we're standing at the moment, it runs across Pilgrim's Way, which is this. So where this fence is right here, this is Pilgrim's Way. And what's really interesting is that right up to the top, this is all part of Wrotham Hill. Now you've got to ignore the fact that there's a motorway there, because that wouldn't have been like it. So the slope would have just continued up. Now, what's interesting where we are in terms of the battlefield, so let me talk you through actually the events that sort of happened. So what happened was that the Isleys and the rebel forces were coming from Wrotham Farm, which is right over there. So if you can see right here, there's like all these blocks of farmhouses. That's where the rebels were coming from, and they were coming from Sevenoaks, which is literally yonder. If you keep going, you'd end up eventually at Sevenoaks. And the idea was they were trying to grab as many sort of soldiers, I suppose. Really, they were sort of peasants and working men to sort of join the cause, to obviously join up with White's forces to obviously eventually go on to London. Now, on the opposite side of the field, on the other side going towards that way, which would be Borough Green Way, Lord Abergavenny and the Sheriff of Kent were coming towards would have been Moorlands, really. They call it Moorlands, but what me and you might know if you live in Kent would be like East Moorland, West Moorland way. So they would have been coming from that way, and they would have been coming across from Borough Green and then going that way all the way up here. And then what happens is that literally pretty much where we're standing, it comes into a triangular point. And the reason for that is because, like with most warfare and most battles, things don't really change, and one of the things that doesn't normally change is that whoever gains the high ground in the battle normally has the advantage. And that was really what had happened. So Lord Abergavenny's scouts pretty much figured out that they'd seen the forces coming from that direction, coming across, and they were like, quick, we need to sort of gallop up to this hill as quickly as possible. And it's basically whoever gained the high ground first won, really. And that's pretty much what happened in the battle. And so obviously, as we sort of said before, the Lord Abergavenny's forces formed like hedgehog formation. Obviously there was new implementation with warfare, etc, etc, which I've spoken to you about. I don't want to reiterate that one. And then they basically routed the troops, and then what happened was that the troops would then, as the crow flies, literally go all the way up to the top of the hill, go straight across, and that would be Hartley Wood. And then Hartley Wood itself is obviously, they were continually chased, by the way. I think there's a thing that if you read about it, depends how you read it, but actually what happened was they were continuously chased after the battlefield all the way up to the woods, where they were trying to regain their forces, link up with the main bulk of the force, and then obviously head up in towards London. So it was one of these battles which you could argue, in the scheme of things, was it really important? Because knowing what happened to Wyatt in the end, did it really matter? Probably not. You know, it's a very difficult sort of battle to sort of like put into context, really, because it was one of these battles that, for all intents and purposes, you could argue was slightly meaningless, because, you know, we always knew that Wyatt really never stood a chance, really, and even though he'd amassed a great amount of troops and he'd done such a good job from Rochester and Maidstone, and then to march all this way, it sort of defeats the object, really, in the end. But obviously he didn't know that, so it's kind of interesting to look at it from a historical context. But the fact of the matter is, if I said to you to come down here and check it out for yourself, what I would suggest is that you stand in the corner of the battlefield and then you just look across, and it would literally have taken place pretty much as my hand sort of scaves across this part here. And as I said before, you've got it from a triangular position, so they both would have been coming up towards this point in this field itself, just to try and gain the high ground. So yeah, interesting bit of history there for you. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully the wind hasn't come out too much in this video. And hopefully in the history lesson I sort of gave you that sort of like gave you some sort of imagination as to what was taking place. And as I sort of said in the voiceover as well, was that there have been remains of body parts, because the thing was that they had to bury their soldiers here. It was just easier to do it, so the dead would have been buried here, and they actually have found skull and fragment remains here. They've also found fragments of weaponry as well here, so it's crazy to sort of think that this battlefield still held some secrets even after all that time. I mean, Wrotham itself is scattered with lots of history. I don't need to tell you that. And what I will sort of say in conclusion to the video really is that I'm going to take you down to Battlefield's estate, which is what all of these houses are, just over here. So I'm going to take you to the signpost just to show you it, Battlefield's, because that's what they've actually called the estate itself. And most importantly, what I'm going to do is in the link below, I'm going to give you the link to the Wrotham Historical Society, because they do an amazing job of preserving history. And I may have mentioned, I did mention in a previous video, which was in Marden, I sort of said how important it is for villagers to keep their heritage and their community going by reminding us of the history that they had, so that you can actually come to these places and check them out for yourself. So hopefully you enjoyed that video. Check the links down below in the subscription. Like, share, subscribe, you know the routine. And most importantly, because history matters. So see you on the other side. Take care for now. Oh yeah, and enjoy the follow-up video, because we go, well, just stay towards the end and you'll get to see it. So I won't say goodbye just yet, but yeah, check it out. See you in a minute. So here we are, we're at the bottom of the field. Obviously it's signposted Battlefields. Come on, let's have a look. So this is Battlefield's estate, which leads on to Pilgrim's Way. And obviously it was called battlefields because of the battle, which is literally, so if I show you, just here and on the right, just after this fence here, that's where the actual battle site was itself. Obviously this road wouldn't have been here, so ignore the fact that this would have been here. This would have all been one field. There would have been a path, there would have been a road, but it wouldn't have looked like this, obviously, as you know. So yeah, and just imagine the fact that this wouldn't have been houses. It's kind of crazy to sort of think of it, really, to know that if you live in battlefields, and you might not have known that, you know, your estate might have been named after an infamous battle in Kent. And that's the most important thing, is that Kent doesn't really have many battle sites, especially ones that you can go to, and that's the most important thing. So there you go. Right. So hello everybody, so I'm in Hartley Woods, which is the conclusion to this wonderfully amazing story of Kent countryside. Obviously Kent's been subject, as you know, to a lot of battles, but it's nice that you can retrace the steps. So I'm in Hartley Woods, which is the site of where they retreated to, the rebels, after they'd had their skirmish. It was about 4 miles away, so they basically went up, they carried on going up top of Wrotham Hill. It is quite a steep hill, even back then. Carried on going, you'd end up going across a flat, and then you'd probably go maybe down into a dip, and then you'd eventually, 4 miles down the line, end up at Hartley Woods. It's pretty much as the crow flies, pretty much. It's just crazy to sort of be in this woods. I've never been in here before, because I really wanted to sort of do this video justice, and sort of like, I thought, if I'm going to do a good job of it, let's just do a good job of it. And it's interesting that you can, if you're a lover of history or just a lover of adventure, you can trace this story. And for me, you know, this is where the story's going to end, because after that, we know what happened with history. Obviously the rebellion got crushed, a lot of people were murdered, killed, and basically the crown restored itself. You know what they were feeling, the idea that, you know, they were feeling defeated from the skirmish. It was a battle, but really it was pretty much more of a skirmish, really. I mean, even though the soldiers had lined up in a battle formation, the peasants really never had a chance due to weaponry and obviously just tactics. But it's crazy to sort of think that you can come into these woods that are still here. You know, you can have a wonderful walk around here. You know, it's amazing to sort of put that into perspective. Now I'm in a sort of relatively flat, calm bit, but the woods, even though this path is quite dense, you can imagine it wouldn't have been too dissimilar from when they actually came into these woods. And then you've got to imagine to yourself, you know, you've had your first encounter, it's not gone great, you've had to retreat, and then the idea is that you're hopefully going to meet up with the rest of the rebellion. It's just weird, and you know, it's just a weird place to be when you put it all in that perspective. You know, the fact that the original battle site did have remains and skulls and weaponry still there, you know, ammunition, and yet, you know, we're in this woods, and to know that this is where these soldiers were staying, you know, or they all tried to regroup, should I say. And like I said, the fact that they were feeling probably defeated, they might have still remained optimistic because they're probably going to meet up with the main bulk of the force. But yeah, I mean, it's an amazing woods in itself, to be honest. I mean, my first impressions of it are amazing, and after filming I'm going to carry on doing my walk, so I can just carry on doing that. But yeah, the emotions and everything else, oh wow, you can't really, you know, put it in perspective. But anyway, so great way to conclude. Place where they retreated. So yeah, there you go. As you can see. Look, ironically, somebody had been having a campfire here. Yeah, there you go. So hopefully that was a great sort of, like, you know, amazing bit of history for you all, as I sort of climb over to start going properly back into the woods. And yeah, as always, because history matters, feel free to spread the word about the channel. Like, share, subscribe, even if you dislike it. It's totally fine. You're not allowed to like every single video, but either way, be kind. Sometimes I get a few things wrong, but I guess that's life. Take care, everybody. See you later. Bye.